So after a long and rough road, I found myself in Arizona and I got my first TV job. And you know, ladies will know what I'm talking about on this story, because my mother would say, call me whenever you meet a challenge. Because I was always saying, Mom, what's a challenge? She says, you will know it when you see it. Call me when you meet a challenge. So I was 19. I was on one of my very first news stories, and I was in a room 3 times this size with many more people on a platform interviewing a gentleman. Let me stop. Ladies, you're going to connect with me when I ask you this question. Okay, didn't your mother tell you, always wear clean underwear? Because if you get hit by a car, they won't take you, right? But the mantra is always wear clean underwear. So, ladies, what happens to a half slip when you wash it once too many times? It just kind of stretches. Hold that thought. Well, I'm wearing that slip on that day where there are 3 times as many people as here, and I'm interviewing this fella on this platform, and I'm just telling him questions, and there's this tittering around the room. And I'm thinking, how rude these people are, laughing in the middle of my interview. And the tittering gets louder, and suddenly the man I'm interviewing won't look at me. Well, I looked down, and that slip was wrapped around my ankles. I did the only thing I could do. I stepped out of it and I put it in my purse. Thank you, ladies. But I couldn't wait to call my mother. I said, what was the challenge here? She said, honey, you need to learn to laugh at yourself. You're going to be telling that story for a while. Oh, but it gets better. I was working in the 70s, and for many women who know what it was like to be some of the first women in a male-dominated area, the 70s were not really fun. I was working for this guy named George Borzon, who had been working in television since it was black and white and really didn't appreciate women in the workplace, much less broadcast news. In fact, the man told me that news coming from a woman's mouth sounds like gossip. So that tells you where he was coming from. Anyway, you know, I started out and I was doing pretty well, you know, but George was not really noticing a lot of what I was doing to get ahead and what I was learning. But I will tell you that he had a sense of humor. There came an assignment. There was a fire chief on the outskirts of Tucson, Arizona, back in 1978, who was having a rally. And he was having a rally because he was being made to hire blacks and women, and he didn't want them in his fire department. So guess who they sent? Man, that guy had a sense of humor, didn't he? So off I go, and I'm going to just be really positive about it, and I get to the rally, and there aren't very many people there anyway, which told me, well, he's not getting much support. And I walked up to him, and I had my microphone, and I said, hi, I'm Barbara Ciara. I'm here to interview you about your rally. He said, oh, hi, Barbara. I watch you all the time. So I kind of relaxed, and I said, okay, Chief, what's the problem here? He says, no problem, Barbara. I just don't want the women and the Negroes in here, that's all. I think I turned white. Well, we completed the interview, and I couldn't wait to call my mother, because I was a bit frosty after that. And I said, okay, Mom, what was the challenge here? And she grew very serious, and she said, Barbara, the challenge is, don't let hate make you hateful, ever. And that is a lesson I take with me today. I don't care how much negative energy you give me, it will bounce right off my back, because that is so your problem. That is so your problem. But, of course, George was still there. And you know, as the years went by, Gene Adelstein, who was my mentor there, noticed that I was doing quite well, reporting, producing, and anchoring at the time, and we had a very small shop. George was the anchor man, but Gene called me in and he said, you know what, the news director's decided to run for public office. He can't be here anymore. I've decided to promote you to be news director. I said, oh, that's great. And so he says, listen, keep it to yourself. We're going to have a meeting a little bit later today, and we'll tell everybody. I said, have you told George? He says, no. I said, you haven't told George? He says, no. I said, so I get back to the newsroom, and in my function as a producer there, I was typing up the usual copy, and it was a political season, and we were, writing copy for the various races. And George, who is always snarky anyway, came up to me in his usual fashion, and he waved a bit of the copy that I had written that night. And he said, you know what, Barbara? I don't like what you've written. He says, it's come down to this. It's either you or me. I said, George, I'm sorry to see you go. I couldn't wait to call my mama. I called Mother and I told her everything that happened, and she said, that's wonderful, you paid attention. Don't get mad, get that promotion. And what she was trying to say is, there will be people in your life, professionally and personally, who always try to drag you down to their level. And if you don't keep your eye on your prize, you won't get there. So that's what Mommy said about the challenge. But I would be remiss if I didn't leave you with that one last story that Grandma Roberta with her snuff chewing told me a long time ago when I was like 7, but I don't care if you're 7 or 70 years old. This is a story to live by. She told me the story about 3 really bad kids. And when I say bad, I mean bad. I mean like Bebe's kids. You watch that? Bad kids. Thank you. Social media, okay. But anyway, these kids are just as rotten as they could be, and they're walking through the neighborhood trying to see what kind of mischief they could get into, and they stumble across a bird. And the bird is wounded, and they said, we've got a great idea. There is a guy in the neighborhood who is considered to be the wisest man of all, but we want that cred. We want to be the wisest of all. We're going to take this bird to him and trick him, and then we will be the wisest of all. So they take the wounded bird, and they got a perfect plan. They figure they take the bird. The bird has a wounded wing, and they figured they take it to the old man, and they say, old man, disrespectful too. They went up to the old man, they said, will this bird live or will this bird die? See, the plan was if the old man said the bird would live, they were going to kill it on the spot. So they knew they had what they thought was a perfect plan. And if he said it would die, they were going to nurture that little wing back to health. So they said, old man, will this bird live or will this bird die? And the old man looked at the bird, and the old man looked at the 3 bad kids, and he said, gentlemen, that bird is in your hands. And my grandmother said, Barbara, your future is in your hands. Thanks for the company. It's been my pleasure.